Good afternoon. We're taping this so that if you enjoy it enough, it'll be available after the taping as well. And we plan to keep it in the history room because I'm looking forward to just seeing the information that's going to be shared today in a way that I don't think any of you maybe have ever seen before. I'd like to start off with a couple of corrections on our PowerPoint presentation. Larry Schindel, who is one of our presenters later on, and somebody who should know, said we misidentified a house on one of the slides, and he would know because it was the house that he lived in, and we incorrectly identified it as somebody else. And then also a correction in some of our literature and PR stuff, we might have led people to believe that we thought that Abraham Lincoln or Abraham Carlock or Abraham Willard Carlock were the founders of Carlock, which they weren't. They were the descendants. Their descendants were the founders. But Mike Miller is going to talk about that here in a little bit. A couple of things quickly for you to look at. We have received a couple of different collections of Lincoln books. And so those are available, as well as Guy Fraker, a local McLean County historian, has his book regarding Lincoln and his climb to the presidency. We have a somewhat abbreviated history of the Carlock family, beginning with the first Carlock in this country, David Carlock, and continuing on through to some of the people who are in the room this afternoon. Also, over here, I would like to acknowledge a gift from the Donald Hayslip family. This, you can probably see across the top, says National Observer, and it was published in Peoria, September 1st, 1888. And it describes several of the early settler families, as well as quite a bit of information about the Rock Creek Fair, which was, of course, a famous fair at the time. Yes, sir.
There was a picture of a reunion of the Crown Point School up there, where Harry Carlock was in there, and I have not seen that at all. I remember seeing it, and I don't know, maybe somebody has it. There was a group of people that had gone to Crown Point, you know, where the school was before, when Oak Grove was.
Well, if somebody has that, we'll
I
refer
haven't seen
them
it.
to you.
I remember seeing it, but I haven't seen it in any of your. Yeah, see if somebody's got it.
Okay. I want to point out that the restrooms are down here. The refreshments are back. You passed them as you came in, and you're welcome to go either of those directions if you could get out. What a big crowd. I want to thank you to a couple of people, several people. Shar Proctor, who is counting us at this very moment to find out who all has made it here. She's the chairperson of our board. Linda Spencer is our executive, or the director of the library. There she is. Jane Randall, a lot to do with the PR. If you found out about this, and apparently you did, it was probably because of Jane. Robin Moore, there she is, sitting right there. Chris Rutaski, Sandy Swear, Rita Garrison, I don't think she's here. And also the Friends of the Library, we have them to thank for the refreshments. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He is a lifelong resident of Carlock. He continues to be a consulting actuary. His family, on one side, were one of the early settlers of the area, and I imagine we'll talk about that. And let's see. Oh, also, he is a local historian. So, Mike, please come.
Sharon and I are amateur genealogists, and one thing we've learned is you can't believe everything you read. I'm going to try to give you my best version of the facts, the history, and some of these facts I'm going to give you, I'm very comfortable with. They're taken from legal documents. I'm getting information from multiple sources and it ties together. But sometimes when you look at multiple historical sources, you get competing information. Some of the facts that I'm going to give you are from one source, and I'm a little skeptical, and I'll try to let you know where I'm not so sure of these facts. And other times, what I'm going to be doing is taking facts from one document and some facts from another document and some other facts from yet another document and trying to tie them together in a logical fashion to explain what happened and why it happened and when it happened. That's not facts at all, that's speculation, and I'll try to let you know when I'm out there on thin ice and speculating. But it's not a wild guess. I mean, I'm trying to tie stuff back to information that I found in the documents, historical documents. What I'm going to try to do in the next few minutes, I can't cover all the stuff that I've touched on in these exhibits, so if you read these when you get home and you got some questions, give me a call. What I'm going to try to do here in the next few minutes is three things. I want to paint a picture for you of what this community looked like early on, before there was a town center. The first 30 years of our history, and how it grew, and yet no town center after 30 years. Then we're going to talk about the first town center, Oak Grove, where it was located, why it was located there, and what happened to it, and why it eventually disbanded. Coming on the railroad would be the third topic. It bypassed Oak Grove, and a new village was built around the station at the railroad, and many of the residents, most of the residents in Oak Grove, moved to the new village. Literally moved their houses in many cases, and many of the buildings come here. I think to get started, I'm going to ask you, get in your personal time machine, and just go back in time to the early 1820s. Let's pick 1823. Let's go back to 1823 and what it was like here in the early 1820s. Are you there yet? 1823, 1824. Who's our president? James Monroe, in his second term, principal author of the Constitution. James Madison, not so long ago, retired as president. He's doing well, thank you, as is the previous president, Thomas Jefferson, and previous president, John Adams. Still alive, still monitoring things, still doing well. Only General Washington has passed here in 1823. We're here on the prairie in 1823, up to our shoulders in prairie grass, and there are no white settlers to be seen. They're not this far out yet onto the prairie. Indians, yes. Indians living not only on the Mackinac, to the north and west, the north, all across the north, but also out on the prairie. They came out on the prairie, they're coming out here, yes. Indians, and they will be here for another 5 or 6 years before they begin to pull back. The Fox pulled back in the late 1820s and moved, the Fox tribes moved west of the Mississippi. That's when the pullback started here, and that's when the white settlers come a little earlier, or come into this area about the time the Indians were going back. 1823. Only 14 years ago, President Jefferson changed this area from a county of the state of Virginia and made it an official U.S. territory. Only 5 years ago, under Monroe's administration, this area became a state, 1818. Only 5 years ago, in 1823. Yet no people, no white settlers, in this quite this close to the Indians. Yes, there are some white settlement nearby. A few white settlers in Blooming Grove, in Randolph Grove, in Funk's Grove, and some beginning to move into Dry Grove, but none quite this far out on the prairie. Let's go forward now to about 1828, 1829, 1830. Some reports say the first white settler out this far, this close to the groves, came in 1829, Smith Denman. Some other reports as the first white settler in 1828, Phillips, probably on the other side of the river in the grove. Now, if you were moving out here, let's say you're beginning, you're settling in the mid-1820s, maybe you're down in Dry Grove, you're in Blooming Grove. What county are you in? Well, the fact is you're not in any county. Illinois hadn't established counties this far north. They would establish a rather large county here in 1827, Tazewell County, Illinois River, including all of what would become McLean County. So if you're coming in here in 1827, 1828, 1829, you're settling in Tazewell County. If you're coming in 1830, you're settling in McLean County. In 1830, the General Assembly broke a rectangle, 35 townships, 7 townships from east to west, 5 townships from north to south, out of Tazewell County. And we are here in the northwest corner of that county. Now, in 1841, they'll break away 4 townships from the northwest corner and give it to Woodford County. But now, in 1830, we're in McLean County, and our county reaches west past the Dells, Montgomery Township, now in Woodford County, and it goes quite a ways north of the river. So if you're moving in here in early 1830, you know you're in Illinois, and now you've got a county to identify with. How about the township that you're living in? Technically, there's a township here. It's Township 25, range 1 east of the 3rd prime meridian, and it's been that since 1787 when the Constitutional Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance. What they laid out was a 1-mile grid system for all land in what would become Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Townships were 36 square miles, 6 by 6. This one, Township 25, range 1 east of the 3rd prime meridian. It's still the way we describe our land today. That's the legal description. But if you're moving in here in Township 25, and tell somebody you're living in Township 25, not so descriptive. So how do you describe where you're living in McLean County in 1830 or 1831? You describe it based on the nearest grove. And the settlers are settling near the groves. Why? Shelter, fuel, lumber to build their cabins, lumber to build their houses. And they got cast iron plows and they really can't plow the prairie so well. They cast iron plows work better on the light soil, the light timber soil. They're all along the timbers, and they're identifying where they live based on the grove that they live near. So our early settlers for this Carlock community, some settled first a little south near Dry Grove. Some settled 2 or 3 miles to the west near Stouts Grove, wrapping around the river as far as Farnesville, the Dells. And there's where, I don't know where the boundary between the groves stopped and started, but Stouts Grove kind of melds into White Oak Grove, probably somewhere north and west of Congerville. There were a lot of early settlers a few miles to the west and northwest. There were a lot of settlers then all along White Oak Grove, which was about a 12-mile stretch of timber from the northwest, like I say, probably down around the Dells, to probably Dixon Ford to the northeast. And then there's Haney's Grove, which is the timber that lies around Lake Evergreen and to the north and west. So you got all this settlement, early settlement, with all the farmers coming in from the west, around the northwest, north to the northeast. And they're living and taking up farmland within a mile or two of the groves. And they're defining their community as, well, we live at White Oak. They're not defining the township. They're defining the physical space, the place that they're living. So when you look at some of the old documents, it talks about White Oak. You have to think in terms of when it was written and what the context was of it. Now, who are these people? Who are the early pioneers who are coming in here? I have an exhibit entitled The Pioneers, about the third or fourth one in. And I put family names in 3 columns. I have a group of families that first took up farmland along the main highway through this area. Some authors called it the Old White Oak Road. Some called it just the Old Trail. I'll show you where it was in a minute, but it's the main road through, and logically, I mean, that was the road they got here on, and they took up farmland that fronted on that highway. These are the family names under these Old Trail neighbors: Denmans, the Dixons, the Browns, the Bensons, the Carlocks, the Taylor, the Phillips. Listed in no order, and let me tell you, there's more than one family. These are family names, not just one family. The Denmans, there were at least two brothers that settled here with their families. The Dixons, at least 2 brothers, and then their parents that settled north and a little bit east. The Browns, 3 or 4 brothers with their families. The same with the Bensons. The Carlocks, at least 2 brothers, maybe the 3rd. I haven't been able to nail that down exactly, but I know for sure 2 Carlock brothers. The Taylors, the Phillips, several families, McGee's, Robinson. Those are early names that settled along the main trail. They also tended to neighbor with each other. Their social center was their church. Their church was either the Christian church directly north of Carlock or the Methodist church another 1.5 miles to the east. These folks intermarried. They were neighbors, and the next generations married, so you see a lot of Denmans married to Dixons and to Browns and to Bucks, and you see Carlocks married to Browns, and they're intermarrying within this group. The second group I have are the Mennonite family names. They early settled a little to the south towards Dry Grove and Stouts Grove in the west, all the way around to the northwest past Farningsville. That's all early Mennonite territory. They took up, their social center was the Rock Creek Mennonite Church, 2 miles across the fields from where we sit now. They they intermarried within their social group, within their, which was their religious group. The Ohioans, the family names that I've identified here as Ohioans, come a little later, late 1840s. Now I probably ought to have Samuel Kirkpatrick over on the main trail. He really was an early settler here in probably the 1820s. He took a farm next door to the farms of Abraham and Reuben Carlock, just a little north and slightly west of Carlock. Kirkpatrick was a very early settler. I have him over here with the Ohioans because his family, other members of his family, probably brothers, maybe nephews, come with a group from Adams County, Ohio, down on the river, east of Cincinnati, near Portsmouth. They were early settlers, early 1800s, along the Ohio River in southeastern Ohio. This was their second move. I'm not sure that these families come in one wagon train, but some of them probably traveled together. They came from the same place, they knew each other, they came here at about the same time. They took up farms east along the Hudson Road, where which Point I lives, those sections where Jeff Myers lives, those sections of land between the Hudson Road and 2100, several sections were taken up by the Kirkpatricks, the Wrights. Their social center was either the Methodist Church, which was on the Hudson Road where you turn back to the Denman Cemetery, or the Presbyterian Church, which sat in Lonnie Grove's front yard. They tended to intermarry. Kirks married the Wrights, the Hamiltons, and the Baldridges, and this group all intermarried. So what we have by 1850, a lot of early settler families, all next to the groves, close to the groves, living three neighborhoods really, three social groups. And as near as I can tell from personal letters that I've read from some of these people, not really much interaction going on outside your neighborhood that I'm defined. Something happened in 1850. I've seen a remarkable number of land transactions. Original purchases of farmland from the U.S. government occurred in 1850. I don't know why. Maybe there was a land sale. I'm not sure. But in 1850, something very dramatic happened. We've got this group of Mennonites that were living out here, close to the groves in the west and the northwest, moved out onto the prairie, and they came out big time. So we've got Jonas Troyer, 1850, buying 160 acres across from the grade school. Later part of that farm would become part of Carlock. We've got the Wentz. Wentz is buying a farm that Don Maurer lives in, and immediately to the west of that, Simon Fry. We've got Abraham Lance and David Zook taking up farm ground in a little to the east in what would become Oak Grove. We've got Jonas Troyer taking up farm ground in 1850 where the Troyer Cemetery is. Kristen and Phoebe King taking up farm immediately to the east. And through the 1850s, go down that road, you've got the Kings, you've got the Shads, you've got Christian Rock moving out from Walnut Creek out onto the prairie, taking up a half a section. You've got Hoffman's, you've got Moore's, several sections of farm ground with Mennonite farmers, and it all happened 1850 to 1855. Big movement out onto the prairie. Doesn't mean that they plowed it all at once, but they were farming. It was in private hands for the first time by 1860. Wasn't just the Mennonites that moved out and took up farmland. When Carlock had been here for a long time, son of Reuben, he was 15 when he come here. In 1850, he was in his early 30s. He already owned quite a lot of farm ground north along the river. Not really great farm ground, but he had quite a few farm tracts. He comes down in 1850 and buys from the government 160 acres immediately across Washington Street. Later part of that 160 acres becomes part of Carlock. We've got Benjamin Gaddis, a young man at that time. His parents owned some farm ground down here where the grade school was and a little bit to the north. He buys in 1850 40 acres from the U.S. Government. That's where we sit here today, on this side of Washington Street. A lot's going on in 1850. By 1860, these three groups of early settlers were now dispersed across the prairie. Land was pretty much all taken up. I think probably not any government-owned land left. It all hadn't been plowed by 1860, but it was private ownership. And these three groups, their distinction become blurred because they were all living, neighbors to everybody. So it was a broad-based community.
How does these families afford to buy 160 acres of land?
Well, they were buying it from the government for less than $2 an acre. I know that the Mennonite group that moved in here in the mid-1830s and a little later, most of these Mennonites that I have listed here coming from Butler County, a few, the Yoder's, the Stutzmans come from Lancaster, but many of these Mennonites come from Butler County, which would be Oxford, Ohio, Miami University, just north and west of Cincinnati. There was a big Amish Mennonite community there in the early 1800s. That land was pretty much taken up when these folks moved into that community in Oxford. The land was pretty much taken up. It was going for almost $20 an acre. And guess what they did? They come west looking for cheap available land. And they come in big groups. Same story with the Ohioans. They're looking for better farmland, cheaper farmland. Much of that back in the southeast, the early settlers, that land was taken up. They had big families, a lot of sons. It wasn't just for them, but they were looking for farmland to accommodate their sons. Okay, so we've got this community really spread out across the prairie by 1860. Still no village center. Let's take a look at the main road, what the road system looked like. Now, I've patched together some plats of 1873 in McLean County and 1874 from Woodford County to show the area. I have earlier plats from McLean County, but I'm using 1873 because the earliest plat I could get for Kansas Township was 1870. So, but I can tell you that what I'm showing you here from McLean County in 1873, the road system looks just like it did in the earlier plats in 1860. So let's start with this one. This is Old White Oak, I've marked in red, Old White Oak Trail, or the Old Trail. It is the road that Lincoln and Judge Davis would have ridden in the 1850s when they were on riding the 8th Circuit, which was twice a year, spring and fall, same circuit, Springfield, north through Tremont, Pekin, then Metamora, then Bloomington. That Metamora to Bloomington trip for the court would have taken them down this main highway. So let's take a look at this road. In this extreme lower corner is the edge of Bloomington where the old 150, before it was decommissioned, intersects with Market Street. And it comes out, old 150, now, they decommissioned 150 through here, now they renamed it White Oak Road. Well, that was its original name, White Oak Road. So we're coming out White Oak Road. I get to a spot out here where I've got a yellow smudge. Shows some sharp turns there, some jogs in the road. That's where Rock Road takes off north. Old 150 had a big sharp S, negotiated those turns with a big S curve in there. And we come a little farther north to another smudge where I've got some more sharp turns. That's Uton, and that 150 negotiated those sharp turns with a big curve right at the elevator at Uton, and then a little north to the Lash Dairy Farm, and then there was another sharp curve back to the northwest. And then we come a little further up here. That's where 1000 Road takes off there at the old Hilton Farm. That too at 150 was kind of a S-curve deal to negotiate this. Now it gets more interesting to go to the next page. Picking up down here at the bottom, I've got a yellow smudge at the very bottom. You see how that road comes straight north and then turns straight west? That turn is right in front of the Jurgen Sir house. That house set on the old trail. Their front yard was right on the old trail. The road comes a little west and then goes north again. That's Red Ousley, the hedgerow on the east side of Red Ousley's house out here, and run all the way up to another turn at 2100. That's right alongside the west side of Larry Lowe's house. Intersects with 2100, jogs a quarter of a mile to the west, then goes north along Sharon and I have the 40 acres there on the corner, so the road is running up the east line and jogging straight west and coming in to Old Oak Grove. Old Oak Grove is at the main intersection in that village was the intersection of Sunset Lake Road and our driveway. That is the main intersection. And then you cross Sunset Lake Road and you go up an angle road. I don't know if you're familiar with the driveway back to Stan and Sally Rader's house. You know how that driveway angles back along the fence road? That is the old road, angling across the fields. It comes, jogs across the field, and it intersects with the Hudson Blacktop, where Dan and Cindy Gilmore live. Now, that road was changed in the early 1960s, but prior to then, that road come up to where Dan and Cindy live now. There was an S curve to the south and back to the west. So that's the jog that you're seeing there, and that's where either the first or second Christian church was built, which I'm still trying to figure out whether it was the first or second, but that's for another day. I'm showing the Hudson Road in dark here because that was an important road in the 1830s and 40s and 50s. Hudson starts in the mid-1830s. This was the road between Hudson and Farnesville, which was another crossing across the Mackinac. It's also true that a lot of old settlers, I've got a well-researched history of the Robb family, that says that they settled just across the river on Walnut Creek. So they came up the old White Oak Road and crossed at Farnesville. So what they would have done was come up this road to where that Christian church is shown here. And then instead of going on north and crossing on the Wyatt's Ford, they would have taken a left turn here and taken the trail off towards Congerville and the Dells in Farnesville. Now, if you go north of this intersection, just 40 acres, the line, it jogs back to the west and intersects with Church Street, exactly where they have the Lincoln marker set. And then, one thing I liked about this particular plat, it showed how the trails angled across this guy's farm ground here. I mean, you got one shortcut if you're going north, you cut the diagonal across the farm. If you're headed off to the northeast, there's another road kind of Xing out in the middle of that farm ground. I always suspected that they were going to take the shortest distance to get where they were going. This is the first plat that really had those old plats laid out. So this is what the road system looked like. This was the main way people traveled in the 1860s and prior, the 1870s. Why did Oak Grove grow up where it did down here at this intersection? Why not up here where the church was? This was also a major intersection up here. Why wouldn't it grow up along Hudson Road instead of down here where it did? I think the answer to that is David's a farmer down in this Oak Grove community. Set his son up with a general store down on the road. Now, Sharon and I travel western trails, kind of a hobby. We've been down the Santa Fe Trail several times and the Oregon Trail several times. What we've learned is that those old roadways, when they went through a ranch, a lot of times the ranchers come down to the road and build a ranch store. They'd provide a camping site, maybe near a spring, for travelers. They'd provide a general store to provide provisions, maybe build an inn. But there'd be a ranch store down there trying to take advantage of the traffic. My theory is that David Zook and his son build a general store at this intersection, at the Oak Grove intersection, take advantage of the traffic. It's a ranch store, I think. But there might have been a few houses there before. I haven't been able to nail that down yet. But that store, I believe, is the beginning of the village of Oak Grove. What did it look like? This is the plat they filed in 1878, but the village had been there 15 years at least before they filed the plat. They platted 160 acres On the right side of the page, there's two 40s. That's 80 acres bought by John McGee in 1836. On the west side of Sunset Lake Road is two 40s bought by Stephen Taylor in 1835 or 1836. They planted 160 acres. They had big plans for this village, and there was more than one person filing the plat because they had already sold lots. People were already living there. So you got a lot of signers of this plat. All the owners, people that were already there and owning this ground, had to also sign the plat. Flip over two pages. This is kind of a stylized depiction of Oak Grove out of the Carlock history book. It's fairly accurate, I think. What we have shown here is a village with about 20 residences, 2 blacksmith shops, 1 wagon and carriage shop, 2 general stores, a butcher and cobbler shop, a cabinet shop, an ice house, a drugstore and doctor's office, a post office, a township hall. Some say a hotel, but I haven't figured out yet where the hotel was. It might have been one of these houses where we used to rent rooms, I don't know. But some authors have said there's a hotel there. And then there's a reference to a restaurant. One historian has Bob Beard, his meat market and cobbler shop was really a restaurant and cobbler shop. So I don't know what he had going on there. Meat market, he had a restaurant, and he prepared shoes. There's when Carlock came, he lived up the street and run a cobbler and saddlery shop.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So the people who bought the 160 acres, the 40, 40, 40, 40, when they became real estate brokers and they sold little,
Well, they were selling lots.
so
Yeah.
it was, they
Yeah.
did sell lots?
Yeah, they had lots sold before they platted this. There were already people living there on some of these lots. And then after it was platted, they sold some of the vacant lots. All right, now comes the railroad. And they're gonna miss Oak Grove. And eventually, some of these houses and buildings got moved down to Carlock. Let's take a look at some of those. Starting up at the top on the west side, number 3, that's Eugene Stutzman House. He run the general store, one of the general stores in Oak Grove, and he built a new general store in the fall of 1887, just across the street on the corner. And one source says he moved his house to this spot, where the bank sets at first, but later moved it down on East Douglas Street. Now, that was the Salzman house when I was a kid. Bill Lilienthal tore it down in the late 1870s. It was immediately to the east of Dorothy Lilienthal's house. Number 5 was the Shoemaker house. It was moved to Carlock. It's the Emory Bradshaw house that sits on the corner immediately north of the bank, on the corner. Let's see. And number 6, the Sam Lance house, that was moved to Carlock. That's where Speed and Gunn at Hayslip raised their family. The old house is gone now, but it's set on the south side of Carlock. Let's see, number 10, the Lippincott blacksmith shop was moved where the Quonset hut is down here, the Audubon Quonset hut. Probably faced the railroad, I'm not sure, but it was down in that triangular spot. Number 12 was the Reynolds house, and it still is 3 doors down, the Bray residence. That's where your house? Yeah. Come from number 12. The post office, number 8, was moved across the street on the backside on the intersection of the 2 alleys. Guy Brown used it for a garage. It was not so long ago destroyed and replaced by this red garage across the street here. Number 4 was a Blanche house. It was moved again on this triangular block, probably facing the railroad behind the old feed mill. Number 15, Joe Zook's house. He's the son of David that started that general store out there. That house was moved here where what I know is the Guy Brown house. It's immediately across the street. I think it's a gray vinyl covered house now, but that house replaced this house of Zook's that was moved down.
So they just basically ward by ward took their house down?
No, they put them on skids and drug them down here in the winter.
Really?
Yep. Stacked them up, put them on skids, team of forces. Probably. The township hall is 21. It wasn't really an Oak Grove town hall, it was a township hall. It was a community center, and it was moved at the end of Perry Street, where Perry Street tees into Franklin Street up here in a block, on the other side of Franklin Street, next, fairly close, I don't know if it was on the railroad side of that old alley, or whether it was on the inside of the old alley, but it was there at the end of Perry Street. Let's see, Town Hall. Oh, the R.L. Carlock House 23, that house got moved onto Franklin Street, and that's the house you grew up in. That's wrong?
Yep, it was Jacob Gundy's house. When they moved from Rock Creek, they built that house, and that Gundy's had lived in it till my mom passed away. Yeah,
Jacob Gundy's farm here.
yeah, well, they first came, they settled in Rock
Yeah.
Creek, but then they moved out.
But after they bought the David Zook farm
Yeah,
and farmed out there. I thought when they moved into town, they moved into.
well, Grandma says that's actually a house and a half they drug down and put together, so 2 houses.
Well,
Find artifacts.
you see, you have graffiti, inconsistent sources. And then the Lippincott house did sit in our back yard. He was a blacksmith. He moved his house down into this parking lot in front of the Quonset hut. It's the lot where Art Baum used to show his new cars at one time. But then the house was moved and is now next door to you. That's a little house that's that they've dressed up pretty good, but it's the old Lippincott house.
So
Which
people just
number
want
would-
it to be in town?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Now,
Which number was that one, Mike?
the Lippincott house,
Yes,
it's 32.
32,
Yeah.
okay.
The back side of that Lippincott house, it has been added on, it wasn't moved, and I know that because a couple of summers ago when it got really dry, I could see very distinctly in our backyard where the foundation was for the Lippincott house, and it is just amazing, section of the house. Let's talk some about the coming of the railroad before we.
Mike, that's 27 is where your house is approximately?
We're setting pretty much on top of 28 and 29.
Okay.
Yeah. 27 was the
actually came
pharmacy,
through-
and that foundation, I found that brick foundation, it's right on the ditch line. It's right in the corner when you turn into the driveway. All right, coming to the railroad. Now, we've got a village out here that's thriving and growing and great prospects, and offers some customers for a new railroad that's coming through here. They were starting to survey and lay out the grade for this railroad in 1836. They had the surveying done for the railroad by the end of 1886. They were done with it. They knew where they were gonna put the railroad, and they weren't going up there. Now, why wouldn't you go up there and pick up some customers? Why would you come across here and leave that potential customer base behind? Well, here's where I get into a little speculation. They say we can't go up there because it's too steep. The grade is too steep. Can't get up there. Sharon and I took our GPS and we took some readings west of town along the grade, a mile or so. We took some readings out here a mile and a half or two to the east of town. We took some readings here where the station was. And then we took some readings out towards Oak Grove. I'm a fan of historical author Stephen Ambrose, who's passed now, but he wrote a very interesting book about the building of the Intercontinental Railroad, which was completed in 1868. He says that locomotives in the 1800s could not handle the grade of much more than 2%. And one of the reasons that railroad was such an engineering feat was because the grades are terrible. I mean, getting through the Sierra Nevadas and some of those other areas, that was quite an engineering feat. But let's take his 2% maximum as some kind of guide. It's pretty level. It turns out they could have swung that railroad around to the base of the hill. It's true, it would have been steep, too steep to go up the hill. But at the base of the hill, the elevation is no worse than it is down here at this station or out here. I mean, it's just within a few.
Wasn't the Mackinac River the problem? I mean, they had.
No, they were gonna go across the Mackinac. They decided they were gonna cross at the Dells. That was a done deal.
Down there.
The question is, could they swing around to the base of the hill, Art? They could have brought that track to the base of the hill, put their station in your south yard, and well served that community without moving. The grade's not it. Not only that, their Rock Creek crossings would have been fewer and easier and shallower to cross. Why? A deal. A deal. There was a deal. A historian at ISU says that John Carlock, who owned 80 acres south of the street here, south of Washington Street, starting at the railroad intersection and going down to the Christian Church south. He knew they were surveying across. He wanted the tracks to come across his ground. Apparently, he cut a deal in 1836 with the railroad. According, 1886. 1886 with the railroad, according to this ISU historian. Here's what John Carlock said. You bring your tracks here. I'll give you the dirt. I'll provide the labor and everything to move the dirt to help you build the Rock Creek crossings. And I will give you ties. railroad ties for a significant section of railroad. It didn't say just across his land, it didn't say exactly how much. The historian defined it as a significant section of the railroad. I'll give you ties for free. In exchange, you'll bring your railroad through here, you'll build a station here for me, and you will survey for me my new village. Provide survey services, you build a station, and I'll give you the railroad ties. I'll give you the railroad ties. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me because Winton Carlock, John's father, owned a lot of ground, had given his 4 sons, he owned 2 160-acre tracts of ground against the river, what I call the old Bateman estate, way north, not good farm ground, beautiful timber ground. One of those 160 acres, he divided into 4 40s for his 4 sons. You can find it on the plat, on the 1874 plat. Now, I'm just thinking to myself, John Carlock, he gets a free 40 out to, he's not a farmer. He didn't farm. He's given 40 acres out next to the river, and he's thinking, what am I going to do with that? It's not farmable, and I'm not a farmer, and I don't live out there. What am I going to do with it? And then this railroad deal comes along. I got the timber. I bet you, highly speculative, when he committed to give them railroad ties, I bet those ties come from the Bateman estate. But anyhow, in the spring of 1887 is a year of turmoil in Oak Grove. The railroad's coming down here, it's gonna miss their town, they don't like it much. They have a meeting in the spring of 1887 at the town hall to take up a collection to resist this right away. And at that meeting, they appointed a committee to approach the railroad and convince them to come to Oak Grove and service that community instead of laying the tracks down here. The railroad apparently received them politely, made no commitment, but they were already committed. They're building the railroad through here. It's a straight shot, and they get free ties, they get free dirt, they get labor to help them move the dirt. They cut a deal, I'm pretty sure. And not a bad deal for the railroad or John Carlock. The folks up in Oak Grove didn't like it. Now this town, and finally, just way too much, just a couple minutes here. This town Carlock is pictured in the last exhibit. The orange block is what's labeled as the original town of Carlock, and it was platted by John Carlock. This was his property on the south side of Washington Street. The purple blocks on the north side, it starts at the Christian Church, and it goes down to, is it Lincoln Street, the one that goes back to the fire station, the township hall? No, it starts at the Stutchman house, and towards Janet Hall's house. It was platted by Mahala Carlock Gans. Mahala Carlock, a daughter of Abraham Carlock. Mahala Carlock's first cousin was Winton Carlock, the father of John. So there's some relationship here. They're second cousins or whatever, but of a different generation. Mahala and Benjamin Gadsden owned this property in their own right at one point. They sold it to their father, Abraham, to her father, Abraham Carlock, when they moved to Iroquois County. They were gone for about 10 or after they sold it, the farm, ground to her father, Abraham Carlock, he died in about 3 years, and she inherited that. So this is her 80 acres. She's doing a subdividing of everything on the north side of Washington Street. Her first edition is purple. Then, at the same time, this green block over here is the David Smith first addition to the village of Carlock. And it all happened at the same time, 1887 and 88. David Smith would have been great-grandfather of Kenny Smith, if any of you knew Kenny. The original town now, yeah, it's original. They say the town started in 1888 because that's when the plat was filed. John Carlock filed his plat for the Orange January 5, 1888. The survey was done in November of 1887. But he'd already sold lots. There were people building on these lots. So the platting doesn't really tell you when the town started. It tells you when they filed the documents. So on January 5, he files a plat and says, this is a plat of lots located at the Carlock station. And he refers to it, he also says in the plat, this will be the village of Carlock. So they had the name for the town back in 1887. They knew this was all being laid out and developed in 1887. It was going to be the town of Carlock. It was no big surprise that the railroad would name its station Carlock. It didn't happen in 1888. It happened in 1887. Mahala Carlock Gaddis files her plat for the first addition to the village of Carlock when? January 6, 1888. And Smith filed his plat in January 7th. The surveyors for Gaddis and Smith was the same guy, doing the same survey, probably on the same day. The surveyor for the original town for Carlock was a different man, done in November, also done in November, probably at the same time, but it was a different surveyor. You go back to the historian, it says the railroad agreed to survey his town. I think it was the railroad surveyor that was doing all that. So we have a town here that happened really in 1887. Stores were being built, people were moving in, and then the paperwork got filed in 1888. Way more time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Very much. Let's take 5 minutes. The restrooms are down here.
Yeah.
And refreshments down that way. And so we'll take 5 minutes, we'll come back and pretty much pick up with the railroad right where Mike left off. Thanks very much to Mike. Again, very interesting. Let's give him that.